Well, good evening, everybody. Thank you for being here. This is a great turnout. I appreciate everybody coming. I appreciate our city officials for being here tonight. This is the last scheduled coordinating committee public meeting for our growth plan. We've had a couple throughout the last couple of weeks. We had two each for each of the municipalities, and so we're getting a lot of great feedback and appreciate everybody being here. Just wanted to kind of be upfront about why we're doing this. First of all, this is not me or anybody else pushing this, some random agenda. This is a requirement. The state of Tennessee mandates that communities have a growth plan. The last one we did was in the year 2000. So as you can see, we things have changed since then, and we need to make an amendment to that. So that's what this whole process is about, is amending our growth plan. That is not to be confused with our comprehensive plan. And either fortunately or unfortunately, we're kind of doing them concurrently, so there is a possibility of getting those two things confused, but they're very different. They are complementary, but they're different. They're different plans, have different intents. So tonight what we're going to do is, like we've been doing, we're going to put up the map that Croy Engineering has been working on for us. This is Ethan Green. He's a senior planner for Croy Engineering. They're the firm that we've retained to help us do the planning and engineering on this project. So the other thing I wanted to say up front is, I wanted to allay any fears that this is not, essentially what will come out of this will not make any appreciable difference to property owners. The only thing it does is protect property owners. We're not rezoning anything. We're not changing anything. Basically, we're getting into compliance with our state law to make sure that if a property owner comes and wants to rezone their property, like if they own a piece of property along the highway and they wanted to rezone it, put a store there, they would be able to do that. They would come and request it to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission would then be permitted to approve that and send it on to the County Commission. But nothing is going to be forcibly rezoned or anything like that. So I am glad that we have a lot of people interested in it, but I want to stress that I don't think it's cause for concern. As a property owner myself, I can sympathize. I'm in the same boat with you, and I don't think it's a cause for concern. This is only a good thing. But I appreciate everybody being here. I'm going to turn it over to Ethan Green, and we'll do this like we've done the last ones. He can kind of explain a little bit on the map, and then it's just going to be thrown open. This is a public hearing. So anybody that wants to speak is welcome to do that. We'll just have kind of a free-flow discussion here. This is scheduled to last 30 minutes. Immediately after this meeting, there is a coordinating committee meeting. Everybody's welcome to stay for that too. It's a public meeting, and we'll just kind of discuss what we just saw. But thank you again for being here, and I'll turn it over to Ethan.
Thank you. First of all, I'm happy that in the courtroom I'm facing you all and not facing that direction. I appreciate y'all having me, filling in for, I think Houston is the person most of y'all know who was not able to be here tonight. So the first thing I'll do is kind of explain what we're trying to see here, what you're looking at, and then I will open the floor to questions. So the first thing that we'll see is this. Where are we looking at the screen? All right, that sort of red, purple, pink, however it's showing up out there, border or line that is slightly larger than the city of Fayetteville is the current urban growth boundary that exists within the state, like at the state. That's what was passed in 2000. That's what's at the State House. That's what the Planning Commission currently looks at when they make any planning decisions that may come before them. That's also true of the small pink boundaries there just outside of Petersburg and Ardmore. The rest of the map is, and I know there's been sort of some discussion with each of the cities on if they would like to revise, shrink, or remove their current urban growth boundaries. So the hatched line there, the diagonal stripe line, is a proposed reduction in the city of Fayetteville's urban growth boundary. And then the sort of faint green would be the county's planned growth areas. So this is sort of a starting point for discussion, and with that, we'll go ahead and open the floor for comments or questions.
Do you have it separated, the hatched area from the shaded green on any slide?
I have a
There you
close
go.
up,
Yeah, that's a little bit
but
better.
it's not exact. It's not separated. I
Okay.
can produce that for distribution if that's useful for people.
By the way, that is just Croy's recommendation, I guess. It has nothing, the city has not talked about this, I guess. It hasn't
Sort of.
approved that at all.
So yeah, the last thing we heard was they may want to shrink it, or they may want to just get rid of it, and so we sort of found a middle ground based on that. That's the whole reason we're here, is to elicit your feedback on where the sort of the final boundaries should exist.
So the red outline was the proposed urban growth area,
The red outline is what currently exists. That was what was adopted in 2000.
and then the hatched would be where
The,
it would be reduced to.
the hatch would be what the city of Fayetteville would be reduced to in this version of the map. It's just, again, just a draft, but yes.
And that island that's sort of in the right there, is sort of a red island.
Yeah, so we've got-
What is that?
We've got two islands here. You guys might be able to answer that better than I can. So you can see my cursor. This one here, and then also this one here.
Those
Yeah.
are industrial parks.
Okay, those were both cut out of the, like they don't exist in the urban growth boundary that was adopted in 2000. So in other words, the city in 2000 could not annex those areas. I suppose that they discussed that with the county, and because of the industrial areas, those were going to remain county property. So here you can see, because this is dark green, the city of Fayetteville, we're not expanding the city of Fayetteville into those areas. That would just be county growth area.
Those are in the city, the industrial parks.
These?
You might point, because I don't think you can see
Yeah.
your
Yeah, we
cursor
can't
very
see
well.
your cursor.
Okay, let's see. So we've got this area
Now,
right
I'm
here.
talking about out east 64.
Oh, okay,
Right.
yeah, up there.
Yeah, that is in the
So
city.
yeah, anything that doesn't have hatching, like this big hole, this is just what's current. That's Fayetteville. So it doesn't have green, it doesn't have hatch green because it's already in the city. But if you're talking about like why is there a little pink circle here, in the original boundary that was adopted in 2000, this was not in the city of Fayetteville's urban growth boundary.
That belonged to the Cooley family and they would not allow it.
And I will say for the city, we do have plans for the upcoming planning commission, municipal planning commission. We will be discussing this urban growth boundary. Also in our board of the IT and planning department, we'll start there. And just to get a feel from the board of what we want to do as far as remain the same, reduce, or delete. So
Yeah. That's excellent.
we'll be working on that to get back with you guys so that this map will be accurate as to our action.
Any other questions?
Oh,
Sir.
Go up. Okay, so the green circles, is that Flintville?
So we've got Flintville.
I'm following 275, and I think that's
Flintville,
Okay,
There's
Flintville, those two circles are the
Flintville and
communities.
Elora.
Okay, so the green there is, what does that green circle
So
represent?
those are county growth areas.
Okay. So
Yeah.
there-
Kind of radius is that?
We, in the previous version of the map, I looked at the existing communities and sort of used some road boundaries to try and do a slight border. After a discussion with Houston, who I am assuming is relaying some information that he received from the committee here and the public, what we decided to do was find a center point of the community and then do just a radius. So these are 1.5 miles, and then something like Taft is 1 mile across, and then there were some other communities identified in the previous meeting that are a little bit smaller. and they're a half a mile, like this
Okay.
up here,
Champ.
Champion.
When you say growth, these areas, are you talking about industrial, business, or residential?
So the legislation at the state, or maybe I can throw this to, is our planner, our county planner here tonight?
She's not.
No, okay. There is a particular way that the Lincoln County Planning Committee has interpreted this, and I believe that it is residential and commercial. Not 100% sure on that. I'm 90% certain, but only 90%, that it would exclude industrial. So I'll have to check on that. Either way, the planning commission, the property owner is going to have to, and I'll circle, okay, I'll come your way. Either way, the property owner would have to initiate any sort of growth, which would then have to be heard by the planning commission, which would then have to be heard by the county board. So this is not,
We had a situation recently, or fairly recently, where a community like a Howe Hill wanted to put in a Dollar General. It wouldn't meet the zoning requirements. This would allow that. Somebody in those communities where they need stores could come and say, hey, we'd like to have this, request it, the property owner, and then it would follow the normal process. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to do that. So, again, this is what we're saying. It just empowers the property owner.
yes, sir.
One of the things that you were mentioning about waste would allow heavy residential in that land area, commercial, and regular residential also.
It presumably, I think, does permit the heavier versions or denser versions of residential. Again, so long as the property owners are interested in that and the Planning Commission and Board of Commissioners pass it.
That's not to be confused with high density.
Yes, ma'am.
I have the 2025 amendment to the growth boundary report that was emailed out to us, and y'all have defined planned growth area is a territory outside a municipality where additional general to high density residential, commercial, and industrial
Okay.
growth has already occurred or is expected to occur. These areas are more urban in nature than the rural areas and specifically require more urban type services because of their higher densities or compact development patterns. So that's how y'all
Perfect.
define
Yeah,
it.
great. So that that was copied, I think, word from word from the 2000 plan because this is a revision. So we've copied that and pasted it over. So that's the definition that currently exists within this pink boundary. So it would, well, that makes sense because this little circle up here.
Your cursor isn't showing.
Yeah, it's just a little cross here. Very top of, I think, what is this? Lynchburg Highway, is that right?
Go
It's
up.
one up there northeast?
Yeah.
That last little circle that's cut out by the border is where the Jack Daniels is on the county line. So I think that would make sense why we added that. So potentially if they wanted to expand there, they wouldn't be allowed to currently. Yes, sir.
What is the thinking and reasoning behind such a wide swath down Huntsville Highway to the Alabama border there? That just seems like an awfully wide swath there.
So, from my understanding, we're already like the definition said. This is where we might anticipate growth or are already seeing growth. From my understanding, we are already seeing some growth pop up there. There's also some incentive for the county to try and be competitive with Alabama. We see some residential communities just below the state line, and if we can put growth right on our side of the border and get those folks that live in North Alabama to come spend their dollars here, that we can reinvest in this community. That's sort of the idea of why it exists in the South. I think the reason that swath is so large is because of the map that existed in the 2000 document plan we received initially had a much larger border, and I think that was some cause of confusion at the last meeting. So the document that we had a totally different map, and it showed a larger area, and we've kept that larger area in here at the south. That is certainly something we can discuss or comment some feedback on whether we curtail that in. So in essence, there's some strategic thinking from the county to try and get some out-of-state dollars flowing into the county, and then part of it is just left over from the previous boundary while we solicit feedback from you. Yes, sir.
How far north does the red or pink boundary go up 431? It's hard to tell based on that. Because I don't really see streets or anything like that.
This is 431 here, is that right?
Going up towards Peter's.
Correct.
Okay. That is.
Is it like by the
Incidentally,
golf course or is it by, what's the, how far is the boundary?
Great question. We can see most of this line sort of runs parallel with the northernmost. Do we have a stick or something I could point this way? Well, maybe that'll give me the extra inches that I never grew into. So the black here is the current city boundary. So parts right here, you can see this is basically level with where Fayetteville ends. And then it sticks out just a hair over here, but I couldn't tell you exactly how far. If there are particular street names that you're interested in providing, the software that we use to make this can zoom in a lot more. So we can get street names, or if you have suggestions for street names for us to use on redrawing that, you can provide it to us, or also potentially the city of Fayetteville as they start discussing whether they want to keep that pink boundary or change it in some way.
Well, it'd be nice to have a reference to have an idea, especially if it's on only the west side of 431, if it's going to go on the west and east side of 431. Because I know on the east side, there's agricultural properties that are under the green belt.
That red line is the current.
The pink, yes, the red line that's there is what currently exists. So as of today, it's only on that west side. There is, we see here, some of these corridors have got the green lines over them. That purpose is to demonstrate potential development on the parcel abutting the road only. And if we want to broaden it out to half an acre, that's something that we'd love feedback on. But the solid green there is just what's proposed, and it's for examples like Daniel shared, where hey, we wanted a Dollar General here. It's just going to sit on the highway, and currently, as the property owner, I'm not empowered to build that on my property. It's not going to take anybody who is in a green belt or who owns any sort of agricultural land and require them to change that. And if there are additional protections at the state level for that agricultural land, those are going to remain in place. Did I see another?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Back down to the southern side of the county, who come up with the idea that somebody's going to drive from the south part of the county up into Fayetteville to spend money when they can drive 3 miles to Hazel Green and get 20-25 cent cheaper gas,
Lower sales tax.
more choices, everything.
well-
Unless you're Mexican in your car wash.
Yeah,
It's unfair.
I don't know who came up with the idea per se. We work these in from feedback. You know, I'm hearing this second, third, or fourth hand because we have members that attend this meeting. The notes get written down. The committee meets, they provide the notes to Houston, or Houston takes the minutes. Houston then sends them to me. I will hear from Houston, Daniel, and the mayor on occasion via email. I make changes, and then we come and ask your thoughts on them again. So,
I'll tell you this, Chris. That thinking kind of came from, if you've been to the state, right over the state line, you see all the houses that are going right there. The thought process was, if we could develop some commercial property, restaurants or whatever right there on the highway, those families, instead of turning and fighting 3 or 4 lights to go south, they might turn left and come up here and give us their money and then go back home. And that would be an ideal situation. But that's the thinking there, because there's so much development just across the state line that might open up some opportunities for landowners.
So while you're speaking, could you kind of just, in a nutshell, what the comprehensive plan will show that this will not show? Because you said there's overlap, but not to get us in the weeds.
The comprehensive plan is much more broad, and it discusses things like quality of life, and maybe developing recreational areas along the river, and it talks about population growth and how we need to be thinking about demographically, preparing for whatever changes are coming, and it's a lot less specific, I guess, and it just throws out ideas about how we might want to enhance our community, things we might want to do, goals we might want to push toward, that kind of thing. So it's less of a specific planning document and more of a general, hey, this is kind of some ideas that we might want to implement as a community to enhance our quality of life. So, goals, yeah.
Do any of the plans also incorporate, like, with these growth plans, like we're developing this, we need additional water runoff to capture, and additional infrastructure that's needed and all that kind of stuff?
It does.
Additional people and houses and all that.
Keep in mind.
Because, I got a decent background in some of that, and I know in some areas they didn't plan for that, and now they've had flooding after some decent rains and it's been a mess.
That's a great point. And keep in mind, we are not developing a growth plan. We are amending our current growth plan. That's all. This is an amendment. The comprehensive plan does address those types of things.
That's what I was asking.
Yes, it does. Yeah, and it talks about it. We have input from our utilities, and it talks about those types of things.
if I can go ahead and I'll come back to you. If I can add on to that, the growth plan is, like Daniel mentioned, a statutory requirement by the state, and it was primarily developed back in 2000 to prevent cities from competitively annexing each other. Like, they're fighting over county land, they're gobbling up county land faster than they can develop it, they're trying to annex around other cities, and the state was like, we've got to figure out how to prevent property owners who want to remain in the county to stay in the county, and from cities from fighting over land with each other. And so they adopted this, and basically they said, if you have to develop this pink boundary, this red boundary, and once it's developed, you can't annex outside of it. More recently, changes have been made at the State House that require property owners to ask, so it's much stricter now at the annexation, but this law still remains on the books. So what this does specifically is look at annexation and then growth. There's one provision that says that the decisions that the planning board makes need to be consistent with this document. What that entails specifically is left a little vague by the folks up in Nashville, but it does say that, and the Lincoln County Planning Commission has used this map as a guide for where they will permit or deny any sort of development. The comprehensive plan is not required by the state and does not have any, like, there's no ramifications for following it, basically. It is a strategic document that the county is creating that they want to use as a guide for how they're going to think about planning over the next 20 years. And there are 4 main categories that they look at. Rather than just growth, they're looking at land use and community development, and that community development includes economic development and Parks and Rec within it. They're looking at transportation. They're looking at utilities, and broadly speaking, that's water, wastewater, sewer, and roads. So that would include, hey, if there is somebody that's asking to build a subdivision, do we have the sewer and the water for it? Will the city be able to provide it? Will the county be able to provide it? In 20 years, if we're planning for growth over 20 years, we got to start thinking about how the city and county utilities prepare for that growth now. And so both of them have a 20-year time horizon. The comprehensive plan is much broader and offers a list of recommendations, strategies, and goals for the county to achieve, while this one is mandated by the state and focuses specifically on land use.
Yeah, I just want to revisit now that you've zoomed in on this, I still am scratching my head as to, do we really want to open up that wide a swath in the south part of the county, all the way out to Old Lincoln Road? You've got these little slivers, along the other highway corridors, but that one, some of you I'm sure are familiar with how beautiful that area is, and the rolling hills and everything else. I'm just scratching my head and wondering, who said we wanted all of that to become residential someday?
Well,
is that just a given that that's what everybody wants?
No, that's sort of what we're asking is, do you want this? And again, this is nothing about this mandates change. This just empowers the landowners that would live in whatever areas are adopted to make that change if they want.
I understand that, but I think we all know what the game is here, right? It's allowing that to happen. And, I don't want to take over the meeting, but, I moved to Hazel Green, worked for NASA. I moved to Hazel Green in '95. There was one traffic light, and it was a little cotton town, very quaint, wonderful little place. Now look what it is. I came up here to escape all of that, and now it seems like we're opening up the opportunity for all that to just keep on going until there's just no difference from Fayetteville all the way down to Huntsville.
So I'm going to take a couple other questions, but I'm going to ask you to think about if this swath is too big, if you have alternative recommendations, or if you'd say, just leave it at the pink line. We're soliciting feedback. You're welcome to say, we don't want any of it. We're welcome to say, make it a little thinner. We're welcome to say, just on the strip of road on Huntsville Highway only. Think about what you want. Because that's, you said, who said this is what we want? This is what we're asking. What do you want? So think about that while I go take a couple other questions. We've got you, and you. So we'll start back here.
Just one question, really. Go to the top map, north, left side. I know of a 700-acre farm that just sold for $8 million. And I was just kind of curious that, the new buyer's from Brentwood, and he decides, hey, I'm going to sell this to a contractor. That 700 acres, a lot of it on Pulaski Highway and all that right there, and that's fairly close to my neck of the woods. How many houses can they put? Is it, you can put a house per quarter acre, or a house per acre, or how many houses get to stack up right there?
So currently, and I don't know the exact parcel, I'm just going to take a stab and guess that currently that land is zoned agricultural.
It is.
Which would mean they can do like one house per 2 acres. One house per acre. If it perks. What? If it perks. Right. Yeah. So again, they still got to go. They would still have to go through the entire development process with the county, even if they wanted to do it. This would not change that agricultural zoning. There's nothing about this that changes any land use controls in the city, any zone, or in the county, any zoning in the county.
I was just mainly wondering if a contractor bought that.
Yeah.
To develop.
The guy, what I understand, the guy on the farm in Williamsville. Now, what he's gonna do with it, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I met the guy.
Yeah.
I was just wondering if he wanted to, just out of curiosity. Is there something, if it's in the city limits now and that person changes it, how many houses could he potentially put there?
Well, I guess it would depend on what he changed it to. And that would be up to the planning commission and the board of commissioners. So as it exists, it would be up to the rules that in agricultural 1 or agricultural 2, whatever the zoning is at that particular lot.
Pretty well anywhere in the county now, it's 1 house per acre. In places, you can actually build 1 house per about 7/10 of an acre.
So that doesn't change.
This isn't changing
Gotcha.
anything as far as what you could or couldn't do. The zoning doesn't change, it's just a
Gotcha.
plan.
That would be
Is that map online, or can we get a copy of that?
The map has been distributed to, this was just finished today. It has been distributed to, I think maybe just Daniel and the mayor. They're welcome to distribute that or post it online. You can get a copy. I have 2 paper copies up here. First come, first serve.
We have kind of waited to put, as it kind of evolved, this might be a good, depending on feedback we get tonight. At some point, well before it's finalized, it will be posted on our county website, and people can look at it, and we'll have opportunities for additional feedback. And that.
Sort of the goal here is that every time we have one of these meetings, this map's going to change. So it's going to change on a weekly basis until we get close to a consensus. And then at that point, this will be shared community-wide, and the committee that's leading the revision will say, hey, here is our recommendation. Right now, they're just soliciting feedback, but eventually the committee will say, here's our recommendation, and then you will be permitted again to see it, make comments, make feedback, and eventually it'll have to go to each of the cities in the county and the county board and the planning commissions to be adopted. So all of that's got to happen before any of this is final. And we have one more here.
On the southern part, if it's in green, okay, I'm trying to make sure I understand this correctly. Say I want to build a subdivision on something near the highway there. Is it automatic it's going to get approved, since if this gets approved as our growth plan?
No.
Or it has to go through
Same
all the
process.
things? This just helps it go through, since it is now in our growth plan, where it may not have been in our growth plan prior to this.
It means it's not an automatic denial.
Yes, it would allow the planning commission to consider it if the property
It's
owner
not
brought it
automatic,
forward.
yes.
No.
It's still got to go through. and-
Still has to go through the same steps, but it will allow them to actually make the consideration.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was just making
As
sure
of
that
right
if it's
now,
in that, it's
they
not an
couldn't hear
automatic
it.
yes.
If you submitted the papers, it's just, this is denied, it's not consistent with the current growth plan. Yes, sir.
There's 3 major issues here. Number 1, we rank 83 out of 95 counties in water availability and infrastructure. We can't keep growing like this. You gotta have water, you gotta do this. Another thing, we get growth in the county, but it's not what we want. I don't understand. Go out, drive out in the county, y'all. Come down to Milan and look what we got that people's putting camper trailers, more families moving into camper trailers, building sheds that's not being inspected. I don't understand what's going on there, not being inspected. I built a shed, run a power line to another shed, got a licensed electrician, I had to have it inspected. That's one problem. And the third thing, said this is probably not the place to do it. It costs us to live. It costs us money to come here. I don't mind paying my fair share of taxes. But y'all, we got to do something about these people that live in Alabama and moved here that's still running Alabama tags. You can go to any of our schools, bunches of them. Like I said, little subdivision come around me, family's been there almost 2 years. Still, I don't know whose jurisdiction that come up. We're losing revenue, because I hear a lot of comments, we need more houses. Number one, you can't have more houses unless you have more infrastructure. You gotta have tax money coming in. Well, I don't mind paying my fair share, but I don't like paying everybody else's money.
Those are the type of issues that the comprehensive plan is looking at, like infrastructure and those types of
Fine,
things.
fine.
That's a great point, though. I mean, we are, I guess we can move into our coordinating committee meeting, and if nobody objects, we'll just keep doing like we're doing. Let everybody speak, even if, if anybody on the coordinating committee have an objection to that. This will just be part of our meeting, so.
Yes, sir.
As we continue to try to grow, will our schools support all this growth? I mean, we've got one high school that's been there. I mean, we've added on to it once, so we're gonna have to add on as these little communities keep growing and people coming in. And
Our enrollment's actually down.
is
About 50, 70 kids right now working the same time. Now, a lot of our schools are crowded, but some of that is because when the schools were built, they just were built for a principal, a receptionist, right? We didn't have an assistant principal. We didn't have a nurse. We didn't have an SRO. We didn't have an interventionist. Right, so a lot of the things that we've added over the years are services or expectations that are given to us from the state. We still got to find a place for that person to sit, a place for that person to be. And I saw the same thing in Marshall County. So literally, I keep a close eye on the enrollment, because enrollment dictates funding. About 70% of our money comes from the state. But right now we're down, which concerns me. I actually like slow, steady growth. 50, 7,500 kids a year would be nice. When you spread those across our buildings, across our district, K through 12, you can manage. But I do recognize and realize that there's more growth in some areas. I think South Lincoln School in particular is an issue, and we don't have any sewer there. And we're kind of trapped, and we can't add on to that building because all the behind it is a sewer field, basically. So there's nowhere else to go. And we need to talk about Highland Rim and the school board discussing that.
Do you think this got a lot to do with homeschool, maybe more people?
Yeah, it's just homeschool.
Yeah, yeah.
It's homeschool. It's the vouchers.
Yeah.
So I can't speak to our numbers here, but in the other county I worked in previously, we had over 1,200 kids that were doing some kind of homeschool or other type of school there. And we didn't have a Riverside. We didn't have a Chestnut Ridge Academy there either. Now we had a few kids that go to PTA and some of that stuff up there in Columbia Academy. But there are other options. We're not the only game in town anymore, as we were years ago. So we really are, and the way they fund us is per kid. The state gives you money per kid. It's not just per building like what it used to be. Or they give you certain assurances. So it really is customer driven, and you got to look at schools aren't a business, but if you're not looking at them from a revenue standpoint of bringing in customers and new money, you're going to have problems. It costs more for us to operate every year. All our employees cost more money. So if we're not generating new recurring funds and our enrollment's going down, then that means we've got to start cutting something. We've got to start getting that problem. I can get Dan. My question is better to plan for growth than not have a plan. I live in a rural area. I love my rural area. But it's better to plan for it, designate it, than just let it go wild.
I agree.
And to that point, we've had a lot of issues, as folks know, in development throughout the county. And hopefully, this and the comprehensive plan is to get in front of that and to stop some of those issues and to help think through that a little bit. So, to the sheriff's point, yeah, better to have a plan than not have a plan.
And this also, when I read last week after we left, this comprehensive plan, these planned growth areas, yes, we are trying to protect the Red Rock statute and everything, but
but it's also to protect our agricultural land and stuff out in our county. Is to keep a 200, 300 home subdivision from popping up out of the pristine farmland out in the middle of, just say Old Elton Pike or something like that. I'm just using that because that park's up there. It controls where that growth can be. I spent a lot of time on this last week, actually.
Speaking of which, that's a great segue. The document that you've currently got, or that you've seen, because I know I've gotten a couple comments from you in your office, is also in its draft form. As the map gets revised, the document will be revised too. So we've gotten some updated numbers from the sheriff on their final budget and what they oversee. We've gotten the same thing from the school. We've gotten a couple corrections from the fire department. So those revisions will continue to be made in the document as the map is revised as well. And that will be finalized and made public in a proposed form also.
And for those of you who are not on the coordinating committee, the reason that those folks are seeing it, the sheriff and the school system, whatever, they are on the coordinating committee, so they are seeing these drafts, and all this will be developed into a final draft for public consumption. So these meetings are just for feedback to kind of guide this final draft that's coming, and then once that's completed, then the final version will be put out again for everybody to take a look and make comments.
And one suggestion I would have, talk to your commissioners. You know, there's a lot of commissioners hadn't been to these, they need to be educated on it too. But that's where your voice comes into approving on this thing. They're your representatives in this, so you need to be hollering at them to get them educated and what you want your area to look like, because there's people that represent you on this.
So,
Just a thought, back to my experience when I lived in Alabama last decade. You know, you're talking about the thinking behind the south part of the county there is, you know, maybe take advantage of the people that are living there on the state line and so forth. That's fine and well if you're talking about Huntsville Highway, but if you put that growth plan all the way to South Lincoln Road, if you live in Hazel Green and you're going to Chattanooga, you bypass Fayetteville. You go up South Lincoln Road, go to Flintville, hit 64, and you go that way. That's the way I always went. It's a lot faster, especially given how many more lights there are now, you know, through Fayetteville and everything. So you might actually be diverting traffic away, commercial traffic away from the Huntsville Highway, if you've got the ability to put up, you know, whatever along the western edge of South Lincoln Road. Because if you live in Hazel Green and you're going east, that's the route to take, because you can bypass going through Fayetteville and hit 64 that way. Just a thought.
yeah, so we can, and again, these are things we can look at. We can look at reducing the overall land area there, but doing some corridor, kind of like how we have over here on Ardmore Highway. We can look at doing some corridors there and reducing the overall growth, but still trying to capture some of those folks that they're passing through. So yeah, or we can do sort of a pyramid style, whereas they come into the county, there's a little bit more land, and then it gradually reduces and shapes into just the corridor along Huntsville Highway. You know, like I can make the map look however I'm told to make it look, and that is really what I'm asking you: is how do we want to make it look? What is going to be advantageous for the county and its residents? Yes, sir.
Something I consider also, like along Old Lincoln Road, the topographic of that some of those areas wouldn't really be that great for building. Because you got some pretty good hills or cliffs, whatever you want to describe them.
We could say.
Yeah, I mean, that's not really that great for building. So it's probably better to bring it back into corridors, like you're saying, when you get further up, and keep it narrow further up, and it's wider down at the bottom, and do corridors going that way. That way it's more realistic and what's actually built.
Yes, sir.
Looks like you'd have it in phases, for instance, a tighter around 231, 431, and when you hit a certain number of homes or, you know, new residents, then you kick into Plan B, which expands out to a second level. Because if you're running water and all of that to all these areas, it's a whole lot easier if you're running one big main and then branching out slowly rather than, well, I got to send some here, I got to send some over here. And so looks to me like from a plumbing standpoint, it would be better to keep all your utilities in a more narrow until it's actually needed.
Right.
Water out.
Yeah, that's an excellent point, and surprise, surprise, some of the stuff that we're required to do is a bit coarse for what would be much better in phases or more fine-grained. For example, we have 3 areas total on the map. We've got urban growth boundaries, planned growth boundaries in the county, and then everything else, which isn't shown on here because it's just what it'll be. It'll be rural areas. Doesn't allow for a lot of distinction between, say, residential or commercial or industrial, which is what zoning's for, and we talked about it in the comprehensive plan as well. But this is, like Daniel said, the last plan was made in 2000, and it's what exists today. So you've got to think every phase that you might want over the next 20 years should be on this map. There are ways that you can revise it over the lifetime of the 20 years, but it costs time and money for the county. So if we can include and encompass everything in those phases, then the Planning Commission and the county board can talk about at a local level saying, hey, really the direction that we're going to have our Planning Commission interpret this and the way that we're going to interpret this is maybe we're in one of these areas in 20 years, but for the next 10, we're still not going to allow anything even if people ask, just because the county is not prepared to supply that sort of utility or resource. So that's why we continue to stress the point here. It's not changing anything immediately. It empowers that change. Everything else still has to go through its normal process. If the city, if the county, if the utility company, if the roads department, if the schools can't keep up with that growth, then it's going to be denied still. But if you don't want to see it in 10 years, but in 20 years you might want to start thinking about it, then it should probably be on here, because if you want to do it and it's not on there, you have to say no. But if you don't want to do it and it is on there, you can still deny it.
Does it make it harder to deny if it's on there, though? No.
Well, I guess I will say, I will answer that question yes, because if it's not on there, it's an automatic no. And if it is on there, the county at least has to look at the application.
I just want to point out while we're talking about heavy density, and to your point, the only heavy density that we had was erroneously approved because it was done in the rural area. So when you're looking out at the south end of the county, I think that the areas that you've got, I don't mind heavy density being on a major thoroughfare, and if it's close to fire protection and other things like that, then obviously very important. The width that you've got going to the left and the right, most of that is all residential areas. And I drove out and looked at several of the houses that we've got. Our building inspector's here, so he can correct me, but I think most of the ones in that area would be A1 or A2. But you've got Bell Oaks, Wynwood, Pine Estates, Southgate Subdivision, West Haven, Country Squire Estates. There's so many on here, and I've got the number of houses in each one of these. And I kind of quit counting. I think I got up to 850. But to me, if you've got that many and it's that dominant number, and some will argue with me if that's okay, but I almost consider it sprawl. It's sprawl development if you let the heavy density get out into these areas. It's not beneficial. It's not what is desired. And so I just want to advocate for my district, which is District 8. They would prefer that the high density remain on the highway for health and safety concerns as well as agriculture, but the first two would be the most important. And it only makes sense as far as those that are concerned about property taxes to go after some commercial entities and push them a little further in, so that we're capturing some of that. Like a nice, I know everybody argues about it, all the time with sit-down restaurant, but what are we doing to go out and seek those entities and bring them in? There is opportunity. There are steps that we could do to capture some of those and entertain it, but we haven't taken the steps to do so. My district, high density would be acceptable on the major thoroughfare, close to those safety areas. But I think when you look at these numbers of these houses and what we have, spot zoning is actually the word that I was looking for there. And again, what's there was erroneously approved, like should not have been approved.
Well, I do not know Lincoln County's Planning Commission or most of their county board of commissioners or its previous development patterns. So I'm not going to make any comments on how that may or may not have been zoned in the past. But you make an excellent point looking forward to the future and sort of underscore what the mayor said, which is talk to your commissioners. Ultimately, your planning commission and your commission, I'm assuming your planning commission is appointed by your commissioners and the board. Yeah. So your planning commission and your commissioners are ultimately going to be the ones responsible for approving or denying any of this. So communicating with them, whether it's in the, once it's, whatever this shape looks like, anytime there's any sort of zoning question, the responsibility is ultimately going to lay with the planning commission and the board of commissioners. And because I have worked with cities that have done this before, even if this plan is, the state says you have to follow it. If the planning commission goes out and says, okay, we're going to approve something that's in the rural zone, they shouldn't do that, but it's up to the citizens here to hold them accountable and make sure that that doesn't happen. And that gets really messy, so we like to make sure that we do things the way we dot all of our I's and cross all of our T's. It saves developers money, it saves citizens money, it saves the county money, it saves everybody's time and everybody's headache. So yeah, ultimately this is up to your planning commission and your board of commissioners, so talk to them.
What's a lot of subdivisions she talked about, all those popped up prior to us actually having planning, so you could just come and do, if you had land work, and to me that feels like what this is trying to do is trying to rein that in, so that we don't have an urban sprawl just popping up here and there.
Yeah.
I was on planning and zoning when we started, back before that, you could just, if you had the land, hey, they voted, you could do it. And I mean, it really didn't matter where it was at.
Yeah, and you're exactly right. In the planning, the comprehensive plan addresses this a bit more, but would it be amazing if the county had enough money to freshly pave every new road and supply every home with water and sewer? Yeah, that'd be great, but that's a pipe dream. So as the county continues to grow and deals with its limited resources, are we going to add a new annex onto our high school as we grow? Are we prepared to do that? If we've got a certain budget for growth within our water and sewer, where is that going to go? Hey, look, we have this really useful map of identified areas where we may see growth, and then areas where we can just say absolutely not, this is not going to go here. We can focus our resources in a concentrated area that will be most beneficial to the county.
And I would like to say too that also I'm getting from the Tennessee Municipal League, from the state, if we do not, this is a state law, we have to do this. And we're planning for 20 years, so we're making some decisions that, it's might not happen right away, but the state is saying if we don't do it, they will do it. And I can assure you, we will not like what they do. So, this kind of opens it up to let people speak. So, the sheriff, that was a good thing to have a plan,
Yeah.
Make sure you have a plan. So this needs some plan.
I don't think anybody's here is against the plan. I think everybody's just concerned about where some of the boundaries are on the plan. I think it's the main concern of some of the folks in the room right now.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
to your point, I mean, since this is technically the coordinating committee meeting, we're supposed to discuss things that we heard in the prior meeting. what I'm kind of hearing, and we can discuss this, the direction maybe that we give Croy to go back in is this area at the south part, we want to kind of squeeze that in a little bit closer toward the highway, maybe look at a corridor or two here headed east to have some, planned possibilities of future growth. Is that the general consensus? Anybody?
Just put a public somewhere down there.
And a Home Depot, right?
That's part of the problem right now, and I've heard from people for years, we don't have this, we don't have that. The current plan we have, if they want to put one in Park City or
Can't
South
do
Park City, we can't do it.
Can't do it. So this would allow something like that, and we got plenty of residents in Alabama that would like to come spend their money up here. So, anybody on the coordinating committee have an objection?
This would be my idea, that we, when you talk about South Lincoln, we've got to have sewer out there eventually, on that. Consider how sewer's going to South Lincoln, probably keeping it somewhere, whether it's a line or an area, but if you're carrying sewer to a school out there, you need some development along that to pay for it, because education does not have the money. Highland Rim didn't have the money to pay for the sewer. People paying for the sewer is those residents that live along Highland Rim Road. Whether that's right or wrong, education cannot pay for a lot of the things you got to develop where this road is like. So my input on it would be, look how sewer goes there, and because we got to develop some of the areas the way the sewer's going there, because it's going to have to go there.
That's a good point. So, anybody have another idea rather than just have them squeeze that in a little and have some corridors out going toward the east, and make sure we get something out towards South Lincoln?
Daniel, to Miss Jenny's point, there's not a lot you can narrow on the east side. The subdivisions are already there. They were in place before any of these lines were drawn. And right and wrong are indifferent. I mean, to narrow it, you're just going to be taking subdivisions that's already there and pulling them in. So, and I don't even think Charles just made a good point. I don't even think the school is in, the South Lincoln School is in that growth plan. I think it's outside of the growth plan.
Well, that's what I think Bill was addressing. We need to change it. That's one of the changes we need to make.
Because if you shrink it, look, I grew up in Flintville, I drove to the Pants Barn every year to get school clothes, and it was all cotton fields. And when the fire lines, you got the fire lines that Daddy helped build into the TVA you used getting close. And now, but Huntsville's been coming this way for 30 years. I'm 61. Nashville's coming this way now. So if we don't have the plan of how to control this, and it may be a wide footprint right now, but as you said and you said, doesn't mean anything's going to change, but you've got a plan where if it needs to, it can.
So that's good input. Anybody got a comment on that?
You can't stop progression, but you got to plan for it, and that's where we can't, and I'm not blaming nobody, but that's where back in the past, a lot of things we let go, and then we're paying for it today.
So is there any thought to kind of maybe not squish it as much, kind of leave it based on the comments that we've seen? Anybody weigh in on that?
Is there any way you could overlay where the current subdivisions are in that, like all the ones she mentioned? Just to see where they fall in that green area. So we've already got high density housing here, and here. That way you don't cut anything out since it's already there. But it could help you see, hey, we've already got that.
So there are two things I can do. One is, again, this is just a PDF. On the software that I use to create this, we can 100% use satellite imagery. So we can provide, this one was provided because it had labels and it makes it easier to see the main roads and the communities. But we can also include the satellite imagery. The second thing I have is the city of Fayetteville and the county's zoning map. So I can put the zoning map. The colors start getting a little, when you deal with all those colors, it starts getting a little confusing to read. I can put the zoning map underneath. Most of it's going to be that agricultural 1 or 2 zone. And so when you see the colors jump out in the county, okay, that's probably a subdivision. And so real easily add layers underneath what I've already produced so that we can see that.
Well, like I say, to me, that way you'd see we've already got them here. So
Right.
that's got
And,
to be in there.
So the things that I was going to mention is generally in the planning community, we don't love going and finding an area and then really spot zoning, changing the area around it too much in either direction. But if a community was developed previous to any sort of land use controls, that doesn't mean everything else around it has to be designated in the same area. So just because those subdivisions are there doesn't mean this big green area has to encompass all of them or everything around it. If we are thinking, hey, that's on the way to the school and we want to see growth where there are already a bunch of subdivisions so that it's not sprawling everywhere else and we can just sort of develop this as a residential area, then that's a reason to include it, but it's not a requirement to include it. And the second thing I'll say is you can see where we have some other communities here where we already have some residential, maybe a post office or a fire station, maybe a small store or gas station or retail sort of dotted around here. We don't have to do the entire arm. If we've got a subdivision up here, we can do a half mile or a mile or a mile and a half dot as well. So there are plenty of options if we want to make sure that we're addressing the school, South Lincoln, and the residential, but still want to find a way to rein in the total area of the green there. Yes, sir.
I'd like to see more roads on there and all road names.
So if there are so many roads, if we put all road names, they would become...
Not all, more roads. It doesn't have to be dirt roads or anything like that, but if somebody looks at it from Nashville
Yeah.
or Memphis and they see this online, they're gonna say, I don't know where that is.
Yeah.
But they see the road name.
Well, your software has all that, right? It's just
So-
when you turn it into a PDF.
I think that it does actually have all of these roads, and we can zoom in. They're not going to populate on this map, but
It has the
just
major
as an example, you can see these faint lines here. On my software, if we were to open that up, as we got closer and closer in, you'd be able to see the names. For a map that I'm putting up here, the county is so big that I can't possibly show all those. But if I were to provide this to the city or the county, and the county were to put it online, the file that we would have would include all of that. We'll make sure that that is incorporated in the final draft that we send out to people for review, so that you can. Well, I guess this will be up to IT and the county on whether or not they can host that on the website, but we'll do the best we can. If we have to provide district maps where we've just divided the county into 12 different maps and you can kind of see in a grid system all of them zoomed up, we can do that. We'll do it. However, we have to do it to make sure that you can look at each quadrant of the county and see the road names in its final version before it's passed. When I say final version, I mean the final draft that's proposed. We'll make sure that everybody can see that and has a chance to look at the road names and the areas really zoomed up before any of the counties or cities make a determination on whether they will pass it.
All right. Is there anything else? Great feedback. I think we got some good information, Ethan. Another iteration of this. Trying to think. We will probably have to have another coordinating committee meeting. We might could send the new map out by email, but I'll get in touch with everybody, and then we'll work toward a final draft after the city has determined what they're going to do. We'll incorporate their preferences here and work through all that. Any other comments?
I will say one thing, and people don't know, we lose 200 acres a day of agricultural land in the state of Tennessee to development. I know I'm not my age, I'm not going to see it, but people better start thinking about where they're going to get the food from.
I don't want to live in Hazel Green.
I
I like where I live, so.
I do too.
All right, thank you all for coming. I appreciate your input. You can as Mr. Newman said, get in touch with your county commissioners. You can call me, you can call Mayor Newman, any of our people on the coordinating committee, let them know.